Every year, the US government spends billions of dollars on defense, everything from high-tech weapons and cyber warfare to jeeps and uniforms. And it's the same picture for other countries around the world, many of whom spend a huge amount of their wealth on equipment and weapons for their military. These military deals can be worth a lot of money to the country doing the selling, but they're not without controversy. Deals can even go wrong because countries end up spending billions of dollars on equipment and vehicles which turn out to be complete lemons. Before starting the video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to never miss out on any of our videos. Pokpung-ho, North Korea. Often the only information the outside world has on North Korea's military material comes from its ostentatious and very communist military parades. Little is really known about North Korea's military capabilities. Any news or even photographs that emerge from the secretive, totalitarian state have to be taken with a pinch of salt, in case it's nothing more than a propaganda exercise to boost the ego of Kim Jong-un and his cohorts. Although there were positive signs in mid-2018 that relations between the two Koreas might be thawing a little, it's unlikely that the North will be sharing any of its military secrets with its neighbors anytime soon. The Pokpung-ho tank has been spotted taking part in some of these very parades. It was first thought to have been introduced in 2002, but some experts believe North Korea developed this vehicle about 10 years earlier. Like the Iraqi Lion of Babylon, it's essentially a knockoff version of the Soviet T-72 tank, but the country's very limited industrial capabilities thanks to international sanctions and the fact that China is the only country that will have anything to do with Kim Jong-un means that the Pokpung-ho is always going to be the poor relative. Foxhound, UK. The Foxhound is an armored personnel carrier that was introduced into operation with the British Army in back 2012 and which was immediately deployed to be used by troops stationed out in Afghanistan. Designed particularly with this conflict in mind, the Foxhound was supposed to have been fitted with specialized protection features that were designed to keep the troops inside safe from IEDs, a major problem for soldiers in Afghanistan. Of the 448 coalition soldiers killed in action in Afghanistan in 2009, for example, 280 were killed by IEDs. However, it seems that the Foxhound does not quite live up to its reputation when faced with real-life IEDs and insurgent attacks. By September 2017, 37 troops had died while traveling in Foxhound vehicles, leading soldiers to dub them mobile coffins. In addition, troops responsible for servicing and maintaining the Foxhound vehicles were reporting that they were frequently breaking down while out on operations, a potentially life-threatening situation when operating in hostile territory. The vehicles are particularly unreliable in hot weather, with mechanics reporting that the engines fail as soon as they hit 50 degrees Celsius, which you might have thought someone would have considered before sending them to the Afghan desert. T-72 Lion of Babylon, Iraq. In the build-up to the First Gulf War, after he had invaded neighboring Kuwait, the Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein had promised the mother of all battles. In truth, his woefully underprepared Iraqi army put up little resistance when US and British troops arrived to drive the invaders out of Kuwait. One of the main problems the Iraqi army had was that their equipment, both weapons and vehicles, was terribly outdated and in many cases had never been that good to start with. The main culprit was the T-72 Lion of Babylon tank, basically an Iraqi copy of the old Soviet T-72 tank. The T-72 was a fairly trusty old warhorse, but something must have been lost in translation when the USSR sold the plans to Saddam Hussein, as the Iraqi version was anything but reliable. For example, during the Battle of 37 Easting in February 1991, Iraqi soldiers in T-72 Lion of Babylon tanks came up against US troops who were using Bradley fighting vehicles. The Iraqi forces lost 37 of their T-72 tanks, while US soldiers didn't lose one of their vehicles. Amazingly, the post-Saddam Iraqi government ordered 2,000 T-72s from the Russians. At least they seem to have given up on building tanks themselves. Panzer 68, Switzerland. So now that we've seen the best, we come on to the vehicles whose reputation is not so stellar and who are outshined by most of the military vehicles currently used by the US Armed Forces. During World War II, the very word Panzer would strike fear into the hearts of the Allied soldiers. It's actually the German word for armor, but it became shorthand for the fleet of heavy-duty German war tanks which rolled across Europe and into the USSR before the Nazis were eventually defeated. That was in their heyday, however. In the 1960s, the Swiss developed a tank called Panzer 68, which entered service in 1971 and which was still being used in 2003. Despite a number of significant problems with the design, as early as 1979, the Panzer 68 was engulfed in a safety scandal that forced the resignation of the Swiss Minister of Defense, Rudolf Nagy. A report reportedly identified a series of problems with the Panzer 68, most significantly that the nuclear and biological and chemical NBC protection was inadequate, and the crews were forced to wear additional safety equipment while using the tank, making it far more difficult to operate safely and effectively. Marauder, South Africa. You have to head to South Africa to find the meanest military machine there is. Amazingly, the Paramount Marauder is one of a handful of military vehicles that are actually on sale to the public, although why anyone would want or need to ride around town in this super strength Hummer is beyond me. Besides, with a price tag of well over $500,000, it's not like many people are going to be able to afford one, and you certainly won't find them for sale at your local car lot. The Marauder is essentially an armored personnel carrier that is already used by the military in Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Jordan, and Congo, and it's the only vehicle on this list to have had a starring role in popular motoring TV show Top Gear, where the presenters put the vehicle through its paces off-road and on the streets of an ordinary city and included them to trying to take this giant vehicle through a regular drive-through restaurant. The tough exterior provides protection for the troops or TV presenters inside from high-explosive artillery and blast mines, while it can be fitted with its own weaponry, including machine guns, cannons, and missile launchers, or instead with command and surveillance equipment. PL-01, Poland. Based on the same platform as the Swedish CV-90, the PL-01 is a Polish light tank created by domestic engineering company Obrum with the support of expert international arms manufacturer BAE Systems. However, there are some key differences between the Swedish version and the super-strength PL-01. For a start, the PL-01 has a composite armor shell made of layers of ceramic which protects against mines and IEDs up to the toughest NATO standards, while additional armor panels on the turret keep the troops safe from projectiles, and the entire vehicle will be coated with radiation-absorbent material before being sent out into the field. All these layers of protection mean that the PL-01 isn't the lightest or the most maneuverable of military vehicles. It has a top speed of 43 miles per hour on paved roads, but just 31 miles per hour when off-road. For its own weapon system, the PL-01 is fitted with a cannon able to fire guided anti-tank missiles as well as standard projectiles, and a machine gun, while its defensive capabilities include a system that can detect incoming missiles and thermal imaging and night and day cameras which display their results on a screen within the manned part of the vehicle. Piranha V, Switzerland. Switzerland is an unusual country when it comes to the military. Notoriously, they stayed neutral during World War II and have tried to stay out of most major conflicts ever since, and yet 95% of their armed forces are made of volunteer militia members who keep their weapons and equipment at home, ready to respond should their services ever be required. Although Switzerland has maintained its neutrality, Swiss soldiers do take part in international peacekeeping missions, which is why they have developed impressive military equipment like the Piranha V. Let's be honest, just the fact that this particular military vehicle is named the Piranha V makes it better than most of the kit in the US military. This infantry fighting vehicle is also used by the Danish, Spanish, and Romanian armed forces, and is the latest incarnation of a vehicle that has been in operation since 1972. Compared to its predecessors, the Piranha V offers increased protection, improved mobility, and high-tech electronic systems. The vehicle uses shaped hull plates and a modular armor system to protect those insides from rocket-propelled grenades, armor-piercing rounds, and most importantly, given recent experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, IEDs and 8-kilogram blast mines.